Good morning, Year 5, and happy Friday. It's the weekend soon. I hope you've got something exciting planned, even if it's just walking. That's what I'm going to be doing, walking the dog. What I'm going to do is going to read chapter 15. Okay, it's called At the Top of the Cliff. A great cliff rose up from the jungle, covered in vines. It was 50 times as tall as Fred. The rock face would have been grey, but it was so covered in foliage that it seemed to rise from the earth like a growing thing, a great green extension of the jungle floor. That's what the black square meant, breathed Fred. Oh no, whispered Con. I don't want to do this. Lila's hand, clutching back on her shoulder, was shaking. Fred, could you climb that? Fred swallowed. Definitely. He lied. He stared at the great green expanse. It would be like climbing a green cathedral, he thought. We all could. There'll be so many handholds it'll be like climbing a ladder. Max can't climb ladders, said Lila. Then one of us could strap him to their backs with lianas, said Fred. I just don't think, began Con. But Fred had never wanted anything as much as he wanted to know what was at the top of that cliff. Where would we go if we turned back now, he said. Lila bit down on one of her plaits. Her jaw was rigid with fear, but her gaze was steady. We've got to try, haven't we? There might be someone up there who can get us home. They moored the raft and picked their way through the jungle towards the cliff. The trees grew so thickly they had to force their way between them, and even though it was barely 200 metres, it took fully half an hour of hauling Max over tree trunks and navigating under branches lined with vicious thorns. Fred stood at the foot of the cliff, and laid a hand on it. The rock was warm to the touch and uneven, good for finding handholds, he thought. The vines that coated it looked strong. He tugged on a handful of thin lianas. They didn't tear. See, it'll just be like climbing the rope at school in gym lessons, he said. It'll be simple. I hate climbing the rope, said Con. So no, actually it's not simple. I could go up by myself, said Fred, and shout down what's up there. Lila shook her head. She looked suddenly much older than the rest of them, and stern. You never split up in unfamiliar territory, she said. We're coming with you. She unwound Backer from the crook of her elbow and settled him securely on the back of her neck, looping her plaits around his body to keep him moored. But I can't carry Max. We'll both die. I can take him on my back. Fred tried to banish any hint of doubt from his voice. Doesn't Max get to choose? Max says he won't, said Max. No, said Lila. The stern look became sterner. You don't get to choose. I almost never make you do things you don't want to at home, Max, but you have to do this. No. Yes. We're going to tie you onto Fred with ropes so you won't fall, and you can cry if you want to, but it won't help, she said as Max began to sob. Max didn't make the climbing easier. His mutinous weight threw Fred's normal climbing rhythm off, and it was a very slow ascent. He breathed loudly into Fred's ear and got spit in his hair, and it was very heavy. Fred was aching before they were halfway up. He went first, with Con and Lila following his handholds. Twice he went the wrong way and had to shout down apologies as he retreated and moved sideways, agonisingly slowly, with Max's feet digging into his ribs. You have to shift backwards, but don't look down, he called to the girls. We already did, Con yelled back. Her voice was strangled with nerves. It wasn't a good idea. Fred shook a beetle off his eye and gripped another handful of vines. He hauled upwards. Slowly, inch by inch, the roots of trees growing down the rock came into clear sight. Then the tip of the rock curved and became an incline with bushes, which became flatland. Fred let out a yell of triumph. Con and Lila followed. Con crawled to the nearest tree and spat a mouthful of bile and saliva and terror and triumph into the roots. I can't believe we just did that, she gasped. Lila untied Max and gripped him tight into her arms. She was still shaking. We did it, she whispered in his ear. Think about how proud Mama and Papa would be. Can we tell them? As soon as we get home. Their heads were close together. Suddenly a pair set apart, and Fred thought for the first time how very similar they looked, how Lila's eyes were Max's eyes, and his mouth and her mouth. We're so close now, said Fred. This is a squiggle, I think. There was something in front of them that looked like it might be a path, or an animal trail, or just an illusion. They hacked through the foliage. An uncomfortable amount of it was knee-high bushes with spikes. Fred's knee became flecked with blood. The ground grew marshy, and tiny flying insects mobbed them, swarming into Fred's mouth and up his nose. Con snorted like a horse, waving both hands in front of her face. Is it far? She asked, turning to look at Fred. I don't know how much of this I can take. But even as she spoke, the ground gave way. It dropped suddenly down, smooth moss and smooth stone. She didn't have time to stop and cascaded down it on her back, triumphing against stones and roots. Fred launched Fred launched himself after her, scrabbling to stay upright and grabbing at trees. Lila and Max followed, Max on his backside, gasping in shock. They tumbled into the heap at the bottom. Fred's chin connected with someone else's ankle. He shoved the ankle away and brushed leaves out of his eyes. Lila scooped back into her arms and took hold of Max's elbow. They stood with their backs to a slope at the edge of a vast expanse of stone. It was an enormous stone courtyard, as wide as a hayfield and at least 4 times as long. The ground was built from white and yellow stone blocks, roughage but smooth at the top, as from the passing of many thousands of feet. It was set in a slight dip in the ground, so the earth rose up from its all sides, forming a natural wall. Down the middle of the great stone courtyard grew 2 rows of trees, creating a boulevard. There were heaps of stones in 5 or 6 places, as if small houses had lined each side. "My God!" breathed Lila. Fred took a step forward. Among the trees he could see half-formed stone pillars, some waist height, some taller than he was. High overhead was a thick canopy of green, forming a roof over the courtyard. "Look!" said Fred. "Over there!" At the far end there was a vast stone wall, half crumbling and covered in passion-fruit vines. Lining the wall were 4 immense sculptures, hewn out of wood and stone and taller than 2 men. Some of the stone had fallen away, but it was possible to see what they had been: a monkey, a panther, a woman, and a man. "It's a city!" breathed Lila. The sudden thump of a footstep made Fred spin round, bending down, as he'd done years before, for something to throw. A man stepped from behind one of the stone pillars. He was pointing a knife at them. "Whatever you were thinking of doing," he said, "I would advise against it." So, just like yesterday's work, I have included the front-end variables sheet, okay? This is for you to have a look at, think if you can use any. Not all of them apply to our type of story, but some of them I have used in my model as well. Okay, have a quick look, see if you can think of any more. So, what I'd like you to do now is check over your work from yesterday, okay? Are you confident you've used the cups correctly? So, have you used capital letters? Have you used the correct punctuation? Are you confident with your spelling? If you're not, just like in class, we would be giving you 5 minutes to read over your work from yesterday. Purple pen. If you don't have a purple pen, use any other colour you want, that is fine. And go over your work and edit, okay? And then for today's activity, we are going to be writing plot point 2. So just like with every story, every narrative, if we've written the day before, it's always good to read that again, okay? Just to make sure that the new paragraph that you're going to write will flow well, okay? And this plot point, just like in your plan, and you probably want to get that out just to make sure you've got everything, is about Fred and everyone meeting each other for the first time. And this is where our work from last Wednesday is going to help us, because we're going to use the character description to help us describe who we want to describe, okay? So this is what I've put. Fred froze. He scrutinised his limbs, checking for any missing parts. He was all alone in the vast open space. A faint rustling sound broke Fred's thought. 2 small figures appeared, clinging onto each other desperately. Edging forward cautiously, Fred realised they were the same brother and sister from the plane. "Hey guys, are you okay? What just happened?" Letting out a toddler scream, Max, the younger brother of the pair, cried, "I want to go home." Before his older, protective sister could reassure him, a loud shriek came bellowing from the inside of the trees. It was the 4th and final member of the plane journey, Con. Con was of a slim and delicate build like a china doll. She had icy blue eyes, cold and dangerous. She had a wide, full mouth that seemed stuck in a constant sneer, which was a shame really, as it hides a beautiful set of dazzling white teeth. Before the crash, Con was proud of her hair that would be brushed 100 times a day. However, now it looked knotted and charred. Con stood tall with her arms crossed and her hands on her hips. She narrowed her eyes and clenched her teeth, staring at Fred with an expression of utter disbelief. "How on earth have we managed to crash?" She said this with a bite to her voice. Her nails dug deep into her skin. And you'll notice today the last 2 paragraphs of the description of Con was from Wednesday's work. So actually, all I've done today is talked about how the characters have met. I've used some speech there, so when you see I've put, hey guys, are you okay? What just happened? That was from Fred, so I've not put any bite to it like I have with Con in the last paragraph. And in the last one, in the second paragraph, sorry, I've put about Max, and I'm saying that he screamed like a toddler, okay? Because I want to really make sure that the reader understands that he's a little toddler. Well, he's not a toddler, he's 5 years old, but he acts sometimes like a toddler, doesn't he? Then in the last 2 paragraphs, I looked back at my work from Wednesday, and I added that in. I have changed a little bit because in my original one on Wednesdays, the speech didn't seem to match what I was wanting it to do. So I've changed that bit to make sure that it matched that they've just had the plane crash. Yeah, so what I want you to do, have a go. Please look back at your work from last Wednesdays, okay, and add it in, all right? And good luck. I look forward to reading it.